Going on, Jeromes? Happy Monday out there, everyone, everywhere. Daily Jeromes live stream coming at you at 11 a.m. Central-ish time, Monday through Thursday, talking Vikings, talking draft, talking nonsense. Thank you very much for coming along, making us part of your day. So first up, hopping into Q&A right away. Cody Sandstrom, what would you think what would you think about bringing in a real power back for short yardage situations? Maybe even Adrian Peterson if he's down for reunion. Well, no on Adrian. It would be funny. I don't think Adrian would be open to it. But a short yardage power back, either yes or potentially drafting one later on. I haven't done a ton of work on running back since, we have Dalvin and Madison. Didn't draft a running back last year or bring one in as a UDFA. So, no. James Quayle. Well, also, depending what happens with Abdullah and Mike Boone. If they tender Boone and re-sign Abdullah, then nah. But if they bring one back, maybe. James Quayle. Hey, man. I really don't know what to expect from my Vikes next year. What are your predictions for this upcoming season? Well, they're all in, and I think they will win the division. I think they'll go 12-5, and I think that they will win the Super Bowl. F-ball God nailed it. Vikings need to draft Jeremiah Usu-Koromora or Jabril Cox, so we have a linebacker that can blanket over receiving backs like Kamara, CMC, Montgomery. Joke is pretty damn legit. I do really like him. I am warming up to the idea of him. Probably not at 14, but say the Vikings let Wilson go. Maybe they let Anthony Barr go, and they're out of range of Parsons, and maybe they trade back and Zaven Collins is off the board. Joke is probably going to go before Zaven. It's really tempting. And Jabril Cox will probably be in that top end of the second round range, so unless the Vikings trade down or trade all the way up, probably going to be out of there. But I did like him at NDSU. And I respect how he just came into LSU and just like, hey, I understand 4- and 5-star recruits. Hey, I'm imposing my will. Damn straight. Madden Mobile, Sansom. If the Vikings miss the playoffs again this year, will Zimmer get sacked from his duties? We need to bring that term in because that term gets used by soccer people. So we need to bring that in. Also, can you see the Vikings rebuilding if they have another not so great but not so bad season? Yes. I think if Zimmer goes, potentially Spielman could go, and I think there would be a hard reset for the Vikings. Rohit and M. Pudi are Greg Rousseau, Micah Parsons, Kwity Paye in a tier of their own when it comes to the edge rushers in the draft, or would you include Aziz Basham in that first tier as well? I would put Phillips in there as well. I think that it's a class that doesn't have a Chase Young. It doesn't have a top 10 talent, but it has 6-7 guys that could be back end first round, high end second round guys. So Rousseau, taking Parsons out. So Rousseau, Kwity Paye, Aziz. Well, our ranking would be Kwity, Aziz, Rousseau, Basham, Phillips. I'll put Joseph Asai in there as well. I'll put Jason Owett in there as well, where they all could be in the mix. Like, if you told me that all 7 of those guys are top 40 picks, yeah, I believe it. Samson Romaine. Should the Vikings pick up Alex Smith if the Washington football team releases him? I think Alex Smith will go where he potentially could compete to start. I don't think he would take a very clear backup spot like it would be behind Kirk Cousins. So he could be in the mix in Chicago. Maybe in San Francisco. Maybe they'll bring him back. That would be kind of funny. Maybe in not Carolina. Maybe Miami. If Miami doesn't do anything with quarterback and they let Fitzmagic go, Alex Smith, that would be a nice home for him. Ira Coffin. Can we get a Culver's review? I've only been once. So Culver's is one of the few things that Wisconsin gets right. They're a regional burger, fast food chain. Well, fast casual, since they do have it. I'm trying to think. Sort of like Chipotle in terms of fast casual. Like, it is a sit-down restaurant. They do cater more towards, Midwestern sensibilities, which makes sense. Plus, they actually have a dinner menu that has like fried shrimp and like fried walleye on it. So, you'll see at like 4:00, like older couples will go have dinner there. Yeah, it makes sense. And the burgers are good. Chicken sandwiches are good. The fish sandwich is really good as well. Plus, they have onion rings are good, and also cheese curds. Yeah, the cheese curds are the way to go, man. Plus, they do crinkle fries. Shoot, burger wise, like it is a nice in between where you look at Wendy's in my opinion, Wendy's at the top end of the actual fast food burgers. And then you get into fast casual places like Culver's, like Five Guys. Well, Whataburger and In-N-Out are up there as well in terms of fast food places, but that's beside the point. But, if you go to an actual, sit down bar and grill restaurant, Culver's is slightly below that. I do like that their beef is not frozen. I do like that everything is made fresh to order. Plus, so they call them butter burgers, but as a kid, I used to think it's like, well, they put butter in the burger, of course, but no, they just butter the buns and griddle it. And just small things like that, where it adds a layer of flavor, layer of texture. I mean, those things do matter. But I wish they'd freshen up their bacon. Like, if they had Wendy's bacon on Culver's burgers, it'd be good to go. But they use like the pre-cooked like Hormel bacon that you buy. That's they buy it from the store at room temperature. But if they had like legit bacon, I think that would take things in the stratosphere. Plus, the ice cream is really good. Custard versus ice cream, it's a slight difference, but I don't know. I think it's just better. Plus, the kid really likes Culver's, and plus it's affordable. So if you get like 2 combo meals and a kid's meal and ice cream all around, it's like $22. And I mean, hell, for a family of 3, family of 4, that's a hell of a deal. Next up, Tyler Gustafson. Yes or no, Anthony Barr and a 4th round pick for Sam Darnold? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Yes. I would go all the way up to a 3rd. That's how much I like Sam Darnold. That's how much I want to get rid of Anthony Barr's contract. Chris Danny Hansen, best Vikings player of each decade. 60s, probably Tarkenton, even though he was gone for a chunk of those years out to the Giants. 70s, actually, do we go 60s Mick Tingelhoff since he was here for most of the time? Actually, might go Mick Tingelhoff. 70s, Alan Page, could go Carl Eller. 80s, might go Keith Millard. Keith Millard was a bad dude, man. In terms of the great Vikings defensive tackles, I think Keith Millard gets forgotten because he's in that era where it's after the Purple People Eaters, so everyone gives credence to Gary Larson, Alan Page, but it's before John Randall, it's before Henry Thomas, it's before Kevin Williams. But I mean, Keith Millard was a dude, man. Like, if he's able to keep on his path, he probably would have been a Hall of Famer. 2000s. Well, 90s. Well, 90s is, I'm thinking about the careers of Jared Allen and Randy Moss, where they bridge 2 decades. They're not firmly in a decade. So that's why it's always tough, like when you do the alt decades team. But 90s, I would go Chris Carter because he was here pretty much the entire time. But Randy Moss is certainly in there as well. John Randall is in there as well. 2000s. Well, 2000s, you want to go Jared Allen, except he didn't get here till 2008. So I guess it could go 2010s, except he was really dominant 08, 09. But 2000s, I guess you go Adrian. You could go Randy Moss at the beginning of the decade. 2010s, yeah, Daniil. Daniil's a bad dude. Daniil is a bad dude, even though he's only been here since 2015. Yeah, I put Daniil in there. Rohit Anupati. If Slater, Pay, Darisaw, Barmore, and Rousseau are all there at 14, are you fine with taking any of them, or is there 1 or 2 people you wouldn't want in particular? I'm fine with any of them. Like, I do have reservations about Rousseau, but I do understand it. I think that he is probably the most highly variant of the prospects in that he does have a high ceiling, but he's got a low floor as well. Barmore, big ceiling. Darisaw, yeah, I'm fine with any of these guys at 14. Alaric Westergaard. How about the tough question? Will Zimmer bring the Jerome Barty back to Minnesota, or has he peaked? I think he might have peaked. If we're being honest here, I think he might have peaked. Westworld. Danny Shelton as a Jaleel Johnson, Stephen replacement. Yeah, I mean, if he's good to go. I do like Danny Shelton, Mount Washington. I feel like he's been underutilized throughout his career. Sure. A little known perfection. Rashawn Slater at right guard and Ezra Cleveland at left tackle. Sign me up. I'm all for it. My drawback about Slater is that, so everyone just projects him into guard because he's 6'3", he's got shortish arms, but he's never played guard in college. Like he never took a single snap at Northwestern at guard. He came in at right tackle, moved over to left tackle, and his biggest drawback is his anchor. So I'm not really comfortable about kicking him inside. I would try him out at tackle, where I think I like Ezra at guard since he's shown at the NFL level to a degree. I like him at guard better than I do Slater, even though both of them do have anchor issues. And I'm Slater. If Slater was 6'7" like his dad with long arms, he would be a top 5 pick. He might even go ahead of Penei Sewell, where I think that he's a little bit more polished than Penei is, but Penei's got the physical upside that is unrivaled. Really is. Michael Merchant-Robles. In the 2015 draft, who do you think was the best player from the 20th overall through 60th overall? Let's check it out. NFL draft. Enhance. Oh, we got the wrong placard up. There we go. Enhance. So from 20 to 60, you said? All right, so 20, Jones, Landon Collins. Kendricks. I'm just going to say Kendricks by default. Yeah, Kendricks. Well, if you put Frank Clark in there, I would still put Kendricks in, even though two completely different positions and players. But Frank Clark, his high end is great, but he's got consistency issues. McKinney, meh. Landon Collins, meh. Byron Jones, meh. Man, some of these misses. Well, you could, I like Abuye, Nelson Aguilar, DJ Humphreys, Shane Ray. Shaq is solid. Perriman. Wow, Perriman was such a bust with the Ravens. He had a decent year with the Bucks. Imagine if he would have stayed with the Bucks, though. No. Laken Tomlinson, Dorsett. Damaris Randall was okay. Stephon Anthony, Malcolm Brown. Wow. I mean, it is so hard to draft, man. It really is. Devontae was okay. Andres Pete. I don't understand the Andres Pete hype, man. I just don't. I don't understand it. Like, if you watch him eyeball test, meh. He's very meh as a guard. His grades are very meh, but he got drafted high and he got that big time extension. I don't get it. Oh, speaking of Mount Washington, Danny Shelton, what up? Yeah. Next up, Jacob Ward. Oh, let us know where you're watching from and give a couple shout outs. Jacob Ward, would you trade the 14th and a third round pick for Orlando Brown? Yes. Yes, I would do that. Westworld, for the record, who is the first? Well, I would do 14. Save that third. You ain't getting that back. Westworld, for the record, who is the first player they signed during open free agency? Well, Shelby Harris. Put that out there. Although, since they let go of Jarrell Casey, I think the Broncos might put an emphasis on retaining Shelby Harris. But, I mean, it's a brand new regime with George Payton. So, yeah, Shelby Harris, Broncos defensive tackle, first open free agency free agent signing. Vincent Anyada. With Rudy and Barr not wanting pay cuts along with Hunter being unhappy with his contract, could this be because of Kirk Cousins? Well, his contract doesn't make it easier. But in terms of it being a liability, well, it is a bit of a liability. But in terms of it making it unable for them to extend Hunter, they would have had problems if they had like a normal quarterback contract. Chris Dane Hansen, are you a Star Wars fan? No. Little known perfection. This whole offseason, I've had to defend Kirk like a knight in shining armor, bro. Stop white knighting people then. Cool. Nathan Schultz, with Fanspeak allowing trades, now can you make a video making the Texans to a contender by getting rid of Watson? Yes, but the trades are very stingy. Like, it's tough to get value out of anyone, but we'll check it out with Watson. Jacob Ward, if you could replace Mike Zimmer with any current NFL head coach, who would it be and why? Tomlin's the easy answer. I mean, you could take Andy Reid, except he's aging out. You could say Belichick, except he's aging out. Could say Sean Payton, except no, screw him right in the face. Pete is old. Plus, Pete's definitely lost his fastball. Like, someone in the Seattle fan base should just yell out sanctions so Pete would retire. It's either Tomlin or John Harbaugh. Where I feel like John Harbaugh always is extremely aware about situational football. He's extremely adept at that. I think it. Well, he grew up in a coaching family. Well, so did Zimmer. But Harbaugh's time as a special teams coach, I think it makes him pay attention to every single aspect of the game and just be down for every single contingency plan. And that's something that I've really respected about John Harbaugh. So, yeah, I would take John Harbaugh or Tomlin. That's it. Isaac Den. Have you done any digging on Florida State receiver Tamarian Terry? I've watched a little bit of his tape, but mainly I was just watching the cornerbacks on him. But he does have size. I think that he's going to test faster than people would expect. But, I mean, the drops are really, really bad. So I'm trying to think. Like a big receiver, not the fastest, but I do like how he's an alpha with the rock in the air. But there's just some wide open drops, man. It's just really, I mean, don't want to go back to the Florida State well, but Kelvin Benjamin, but faster and actually does like the game. Nah, we can do better than that. Early career Plaxico. I mean, could that be like Steelers Plaxico with concentration drops? Yeah, I could see that. But yeah, Terry, I don't know where he's gonna go. Probably day 3. It's a deep ass wide receiver class, man. Hans Meyer, you should check out Jalen Darden from North Texas. He's a freak. He is indeed a freak. All right, couple shout outs. McNiller and Sons, Skull from Arizona. Mark Sonnenberg, Rhinelander, Wisconsin, Purple Rain, Wausau, Wisconsin. Justin Jones, New Bern, North Carolina, go Vikes. Patrick Harm, Cedar Rapids, Madden Mobile, Dallas, Fort Worth, what up? Brock Swanson, Casson, what up, Casson? And David Nelson, Skull from Northeastern Florida. Is that Duval territory? Guessing so. You guys are the best. Thanks for coming along. Next up, Matt Collins, Rudy Barr, and a late 4th for Jets second. For Jets second round pick, I mean, yeah, I'd be in, but I don't know if the Jets would be in. Rudy and Barr's trade value is extremely nil. I mean, Rudy at $7 million per, Barr at 12.3, and coming off a Peck. I'll go for audio greatness. If you had to guess, will the Vikings start next starting quarterback after Cousins be someone that's already in the league or someone that's still in college? I'm going to say still in college, but they're going to be in the draft this year. Oh, Derek Baker. We got to see Daniil Hunter's video with his impressive progress in his workouts. Is there any way to find out how Garrett Bradbury is doing with improving his anchor and strength, or is it too early for that? Probably not. I don't think Bradbury's going to put anything out because he doesn't really have anything to gain. Like, he's not in a contract situation. Plus, he's not very active on Instagram from what I've seen. So, I probably won't see that. Plus, what are you going to show? Like, tire flipping and squats and deadlifts? Well, no, NFL programs are more about snatches versus deadlifts. Samuel McMullen. No one has really mentioned Dalvin restructuring his contract. Is that something that could happen to help the cap? Certainly. Let's take a look at it. Although I don't think he has a very large base salary this year. A spot rack is down. Shocker. Maybe. But also, well, you could restructure Thielen and Kendricks for sure because you could easily see them on the team. But maybe the Vikings don't want to kick that can with Dalvin just because health-wise, they don't really know how Dalvin's going to hold up for the future. You know what I mean? So, Linval Joseph's room be released by Chargers? Yes. Bring him back on the cheap. Back up Pierce. Also, as a contingency plan, if Pierce opts out again, draft edge in round 1, safety round 2, depending on and pick up veteran guard. Thoughts on this? Well, if you trade up in round 2, say you trade up and get Richie Grant, like package one of the thirds and one of the fourths, I'm in. And then edge, pay Aziz, Rousseau. Sure. Pulford Skull. Rudy, Reef, and Barr said they won't take a pay cut or restructure this year. Good for them. They go. Rohit and Impudi. What's the most draft compensation the Vikings can get out of trading Barr knowing he has a big contract? Probably a 6th. It's not going to be much. Luke Zacher. Have you ever looked at a Vikings crowd and tried to find someone who's not white? It's like playing Where's Waldo. It's a little presumptive. Pulford Skull. Breaking Washington expected to part ways with Alex Smith. Where's he going? I think that he... Gosh. It's a different regime in San Francisco. Maybe he ends up back in San Francisco. Nah. I think Chicago or Miami, I think would be the best spot. Wherever Darnold lands, if that team brought in Alex Smith, that would make sense. Casey Wall. Or I get that Jacksonville is probably going to start Lawrence right away, and that New York is probably going to start Zach Wilson right away. But having Alex Smith as your backup in one of those two spots, that would make a ton of sense. Casey Wall. If you had the second overall pick in 2021, who'd you spend it on? Zach Wilson. I would. Where I understand the drawbacks of Wilson, shoulder issues. He wasn't voted to team captain. You wonder about his frame holding up in the National Football League, but that arm talent is rare, especially when he's on the move. That accuracy, that flick of the wrist, that arm strength, it really can be unparalleled. And if he fleshes out like 90% of his potential, he'll be an all-pro quarterback, which, let's go get it. Patrick Harms. What would your realistic dream draft without using without using a draft simulator? Specific players or positions? Specific players, sticking and picking. We'll just do 14, 78, and 90. 14, Darisaw. 78, Aleem McNeil. It's a little bit hopeful, but Aleem McNeil. And the 90, who do I want at 90? Maybe Richie Grant gets the 90. Probably unlikely. James Wiggins, maybe. Who do you want at 90? Dwayne Eskridge? Jalen Darden, maybe? Yeah, some combination of O-line, defensive tackle, wide receiver, safety, edge, somewhere in there. Patrick Harms. Oh, wrote that one as a burp. Bruce Robinson Jr. What free agent restricted or unrestricted on the rooster do you want the Vikings keep? I want them to keep Mike Boone, who's an RFA. Unrestricted, there isn't really any that I'm just like, gotta have it. I mean, Eric Wilson, if he's back on $3 million a year, sure. Casey Coonan. Anyway, the Vikings drafting Mac Jones, I think it's unlikely. But if they check the boxes of O-line and defensive tackle, don't need to blow it out of the water, but just getting some semblance of depth there, then that would free them up to go BPA at 14. And if it's Mac Jones, so be it. Double BB88. What's the one position you deny out the Vikings draft with their number one choice, no matter who happens to fall in that spot? Tight end. Tight end would be Pitts, so I'm okay with that. Running back, I guess. Najee Harris, that doesn't make sense. Other than that, I mean, I can understand every single position. Quarterback makes sense. Wide receiver, if it's Waddle or Chase somehow or Devontae, sure. Tackle, yes, Darisaw or Slater. Guard, I guess it's a little bit high for guard. Like Elijah Vera Tucker. Yeah. Center, that would obviously be high because you're looking at what? Dickerson and Creed Humphrey. Yeah, that's high there. Edge rusher, Pay Rousseau, Aziz, sure. Phillips even. Maybe even Boogie Basham. Defensive tackle, that'd be Barmore. I'm okay with that. Off-ball linebacker. Looking at Parsons. Looking at Joke. Looking at Zaven. Parsons, yes. 14 is a little bit high for Joke. Cornerback. Looking at, if Surtain or Farley fall, absolutely take them. Or J.C. Horn, I understand. Safety, Morig. Yeah, I mean, other than running back or fullback or tight end Pitts or specialist, yeah, I'm fine with it. Ezekiel Lockhart. Number one, Wild won 6 straight games. Did you watch this weekend? No. Number 2, or what did you watch this weekend? I don't think I watched anything. No, just clean the house, spend time with the kids. That's really about it. Smoked meat. Number 2, I'll listen to books. So I'm listening to this alternate history book by Harry Turtledove, and it's got a fictionalized version of Mark Twain in it. And then there's a Mark Twain sex scene. It came out of nowhere. Plus, so the Bluetooth headphones I got are like bootlegs of bootlegs, and they work fine. The sound is good, but they don't have a pause function. So I didn't have my phone on me, so I just had to take it. So I just had to listen to Mark Twain. The description of Mark Twain having sex, which is not great. Yeah. Angel Dutz Sr. What do you think of the possibility that Trader Rick sticks and picks at 14 overall? I think it's fine. I think there's going to be a ton of value, but the problem is parsing out who are you going to take. How bad of an owner was Red McCombs? He was the worst. He was the worst owner in Vikings franchise history. And the constant threats of moving the team to San Antonio, the choice of, I forget the timeline of what it was, but when the Vikings were on WCCO on the radio, they had a really good play-by-play guy. I forget his name. This is before Paul Allen. And then they replaced him with Red McCombs' buddy, who had like no game calling experience. Then eventually it went to Paul Allen. But the reports are that the team was notoriously cheap at the time, both in spending in free agents and players and contracts, as well as, just small stuff like towels in the locker room. Like, it was very Spartan and not essentially in a good way. It was just a really dark time. And, the firing of Denny Green, and the only reason Mike Tice got the head coaching job wasn't really on merit, even though I do think that Tice did the best with what he had, but it's because Mike Tice was the cheapest coach in the league. And that's what was appealing about him to Red McComb. So I'm glad that the Wolves bought the team. I think the Wolves are amongst the best owners in the league, if not all of professional sports. They pay the money, they hire good people, and then they get out of the way. Sometimes they get out of the way to a fault, but yeah, they're infinitely better than Red McCombs. Like, the Vikings easily could have moved while he was owner. For Ward, anyway, we get Zach Wilson trading all the way up. Miles. How do you think Bradbury and Gladney will do next year? I think Gladney will be a master of the slot. I think that his curve will be a lot like Mac Alexander, where Mac year 4 was a boss. He was just a boss in the slot. I think Gladney will speed that up and be that in year 2. Bradbury, got to work on that anchor, man. And if he does, then I think he has the potential to be one of the best move centers in the league. But if he doesn't, the Vikings got to be ready to pull the plug. Ruby Vroom. Why don't NFL coaches wear suits like other professional sports coaches? They look like slobs. It has to do with licensing apparel. So, Nike, Reebok, whoever currently has the NFL contract, I think it's Nike. Well, Reebok back in the day. Oh, so I'm thinking about Reebok because the last time coaches wore suits on the sidelines was Mike Nolan with the Niners and Jack Del Rio with the Jaguars. They both wore suits, and Reebok had the apparel contract at the time, and coaches have to wear the apparel provided by the league sponsors. But they worked around it in that Reebok made a suit because Mike Nolan wanted to wear a suit because his father, Dick Nolan, was a longtime NFL head coach and wore a suit, classy on the sidelines. And they should bring that back. Like, they should work out something. And this would be an untapped market, because if Nike created an athletic wear line of suits, like, people would buy that. Like, dudes who are executives or dudes who just have to wear a sport coat to functions, like, they will buy Nike suits. Like, they will. And have it be dry fit material. It'll be light. That's one of the big complaints. Like, if you have to wear a suit in the summer, either for your job or like at a wedding or something, like, they don't breathe very well. Like, even if you get a wool suit. But if you have suits that are comfortable, that flex, that are breathable, are dry fit material, hell yeah, that would sell. Hell yeah. Plus, I feel like a bunch of coaches, if they had the option of wearing suits on game day, I think they would. Sure. Griffin Career. Do you think if Devontae Smith is there at 14, we take him? I would hope so. I don't necessarily trust them to do that, but that'd be great. But I think it's been like a decade plus since the team has drafted first round wide receivers in back-to-back years. But God, that would be tempting. I think Devontae and Jefferson for years to come. Let's go. Ben Bowman. Do you have any draft crushes you haven't talked about much? Mine is still Kormora. The way he covers wideouts, my God. Yeah, Kormora's skills are Pretty damn legit. See, draft crushes. See, I think I've talked about everyone though. Darius, I've talked a lot about. I've talked about Kwity Paye. I've talked about Aziz. I've talked about Ali McNeil. I've talked about Marvin Wilson. I've talked about. I don't really have any quarterback crushes since Ritter didn't declare. It's sort of off the table. I like Ian Book. I like Jamie Newman. I do have a crush on Wheeler Walker Little Jr., except I want to keep that in the down low. Have him fall to the third round. I like Jalen Darden. I like Eskridge. Oh, Josh Palmer. It's been a crush. I've talked about him quite a bit. Tariq Thompson, the safety from San Diego State. I've talked about him. I've talked about Gillespie. I've talked about Richie Grant. Oh, the Kentucky linebacker. I haven't done a lot of work on him, but he's starting to get some steam. If the Vikings do part ways with Anthony Barr, or hell, even if they do keep Anthony Barr, I wouldn't mind going in that direction. Oh, yeah, Jamin Davis. Probably going to be a mid-round guy. Next up, my Merchant Rovals. What languages do you speak? English, kind of. I could converse on an extremely low level in Spanish, but I'm better at understanding. Maybe it's just because we binge watched Narcos a couple months ago. But if like a Spanish speaker talked really slow, we could converse, or at least get the get the basics down. I know some Mandarin, but not a lot. The kid is starting to take Japanese lessons, so through osmosis, trying to pick up some of that konnichiwa. That's about it. I can count to 10 in French. I know that cheese is fromage. That's it. Oh, Gordo fromage, like fat cheese. Pulford Skull. Train Day, Saving Private Ryan, Anchorman. One's got to go. Anchorman. Going away. I don't even like Anchorman, though. Well, I respect that it's one of the most quotable movies, but as like a rewatchability movie, no. Training Day, Saving Private Ryan, shoot. McNiller and Sons. Who are your top 5 Big Ten draft prospects outside of the quarterback position? Oh, that's very specific. Gotta think who's in the Big Ten. So I go Kwity Paye, Micah Parsons, Rashawn Slater, Greg Newsome, Jason Owe, Jalen Mayfield, Kendrick Green, this is kind of tough. Are we all the way to Daniel Falele? We might be. Oh, Shakur Brown. Yeah, put him in there. Might be about it. Tommy Tagai. Chris Olave would have been in there if he declared. That's got to be 10, right? It's probably 10. Steve Patton. At the time of the draft, if Rieger and Jefferson were on board, who'd you take? And not a gotcha question. Well, it kind of is. Yeah, I would have taken Rieger. I would have, because I thought at the time that Rieger best replaced Diggs in terms of being that deep threat, plus he provided special teams value. But Jefferson, I like Jefferson, not specifically for the Vikings. Glad I was wrong. Glad the Vikings, glad the Eagles made a mistake, although I do think that Rieger is going to be a really good pro if he can stay healthy. And again, it's not so much I was downgrading Jefferson, but I was just that bullish on Rieger. CG53 Sports Reviews and Gaming. What are the realistic odds the Vikings trade Danielle Hunter? Probably 10%. I think it's 85% that he gets extended. I think it's extremely low, like 5% chance that this gets dragged out into a holdout situation. Charlie Mullins. Would you rather have Trevor Lawrence on next year's on his rookie deal or Deshaun Watson for the next year's on his current deal? Watson. Well, depends on what your goals are, because Jacksonville is probably 2, 3, 4 years away from being good. So yeah, roll with the young guy. But with Watson, you know that he's already good. And if you want to try to win a Super Bowl right now, I'll go with Watson. Christopher Ross. But neutral team, I'll still take Watson. Because you hope that Lawrence is as good as Watson. You know that Watson is good. Christopher Frost, where do you take the second or third wide receivers in the draft? Second or third wide receiver. So I think Chase is going to go top 5. I think the Eagles go wide receiver at 6. Like, I'm not buying the bluster of that they'll go quarterback. I think that wide receiver 1 goes at 3. Maybe the Dolphins, maybe someone else. Well, have to be the Dolphins. If someone trade up, it's probably for a quarterback. 6. So that would be the second wide receiver to the Eagles. And hell, might be 7. Might be 7 to the Lions if they unless they go Parsons. Absent that, no. Oh, the Giants at 11. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Young man, I think we all can agree Kirk is the best quarterback to ever touch football. Well, maybe like his own footballs, but that's about it. That's it. That is the Daily Jerome's live stream for Monday. Thank you very much for coming along. Subscribe for Daily Vikings Takes. We got some fun videos out. So we did a reading of Justin Jefferson's negative draft scouting reports, including ours. It's not great. And then we compared. So a couple weeks ago, we watched Ted Lasso. It's a great show. So we compared Premier League teams to NFL teams, given our limited knowledge of football and soccer. Actually, that fits.